During their official livestream for version 5.8, Genshin's developers showcased and discussed the character of Ineffa, whose release marks the game's first ever playable Snezhnayan unit. Our second ever playable Snezhnayan unit, specifically hailing from the autonomously governed region of Nodekrai. Technically, but there is more to her than meets the eye, hence why I am making this video to begin with. At surface level, Ineffa is an automaton assistant with an advanced capacity for logic and abstract reasoning who was assembled by a brilliant mechanic in Nodekrai. This young girl, shown right here, is clearly either that mechanic herself or has something to do with them. Regardless, I am going to leave the discussion of their backstories for another time, since I am currently much more interested in how Ineffa operates and what she is made from. Despite gaining individual sentience in Nodekrai, Ineffa was created from various components found throughout Tvat's 7 nations. A couple of technologies which Shilonen points out in particular are Ineffa's Fontanian mecha joints, along with an energy core from Natlan's ancient dragon civilization. Ineffa's joints come from the famous clockwork mechanisms, a type of robotics first developed by the founder of Fontane's Research Institute of Kinetic Energy Engineering, Alain Guillotine, who was also an old friend of Jacob Baker and René de Petrichor from the Narcissenkreuz Institute. Now, Alain himself based much of his inventions, whether the kinetic energy cores or the clockwork mechanisms, on the primal constructs of the Sumerian god king Amun. Alain's former assistant, Carter Sherbius, even mentions how Alain and René liken the properties of primal light, which powered Amun's civilization, to the type of energy produced from a Numusia annihilation reaction. With the help of another inventor, who later went on to become the ancestor of Livre and Caron, Alain Guillotine managed to create his first ever clockwork robot in the form of prototype 4AC-V07, which he then named Seymour in honor of a dog he once had. This means, yes, Ineffa would not exist had it not been for Seymour's successful development by Alain and the other nameless inventor, since much of her design properties are directly taken from all the clockwork mechas that came after Seymour, and I find this detail really cool. As for the other noteworthy component in Ineffa's body, it's this energy core located in her chest, which you should recognize thanks to the secret source assistance found in Chiquotel's ancient city inside the Great Volcano of Tolan. This is super important because the developers specifically point out Ineffa's pixelated animations as being similar to Kuhul Ahau, one of the 13 dragon lords who presided over the cities of Natlantia during Chiquotel's era. And to hammer the idea home, they even show us Lord number 9, Ish Ushul Zi'ib Bolonich Uliel, or Ishlel for short, who tried to deceive Ochkan thousands of years ago, but ended up getting sealed by him inside the old core of his city, which by the way used to be her city before Xbalanque defeated Chiquotel. Now here's the thing, Ishlel was only the most recent of the 13 lords to pass away, thanks to the traveler freeing her soul from the core of Chuulel. All of the other lords before her have been either confirmed or strongly implied to be dead. The only exception to this is the aforementioned Kuhul Ahau, who managed to transmute his will, consciousness, and soul into phlogiston units, thereby preserving his life to this day. Keep in mind, Kukulkan was not one of the 13 lords. Prior to his impeachment, he had a higher ranking position as one of the 3 princes, thanks to being Chiquotel's younger brother. As such, the ancient dragon whose memories Ineffa has is very likely either one of the remaining princes or one of the 11 deceased sovereign lords whose fates remain unclear. Unfortunately, we currently know very little about Natlantia's princes outside of Kukulkan himself, so there isn't much to say besides suggesting them as a possibility. But when it comes to the 13 lords, I would like to point out 5 of them in particular, those being the Jade Maiden, Ish Helal Kawalka, the Weaver of Secrets, Ish Kimonel Hashhatem Oosh, the Mirror of Dawning Morn, Ish Raklapush Chuek Buluk, the Bone Breaker, Ah Kuplahik Oosh Lahu, and lastly, the Priestess of Floral Candles and Skyborn Feathers, Ish Ahkotsi Ikishmal Washak. The first 4 all passed away due to unknown circumstances, so each one of them has a possibility of being Ineffa's ancient dragon, but the last one, Ish Ahkotsi Ikishmal Washak, is a bit more special, and currently she stands as the most likely candidate for the identity of the dragon in Ineffa's mind. As per Tevat's consistent theme of actors who play the role of reoccurring characters in the cyclical opera of fate, just like every single generation in Natlan, the first Pyro Archon Xbalanque had his own group of valiant heroes who journeyed with him to slay the big evil dragon. I am using the term evil dragon metaphorically here, even if in this case there was a literal dragon. The point is that this is a play on Joseph Campbell's concept of the hero's journey, where there must always be an evil dragon. Genshin uses this narrative trope almost everywhere. Anyway, one of those heroes who allied with Xbalanque against the ancient dragons was Lianka, the founder of the Flower Feather clan, and the first bearer of the ancient name Vuka, later held by Menelik 500 years ago and Chaska today. Just like how Chaska was adopted and raised by Saurians in the wild, Lianka too was taken in as an orphan by Ish-Ahkotsi Kishmalwashak and raised as her daughter. In fact, Lianka named the Flower Feather clan in honor of her adoptive mother's title, Priestess of Floral Candles and Skyborn Feathers. However, adopting a human eventually came to bite her in the ass, because during the Siege of Tolan, the other lords saw Ish-Ahkotsi Kishmalwashak's adoption and affinity towards one of Xbalanque's closest allies as being a great act of treason, so they held a vote to execute her, which subsequently passed, leading to her death. Or so we thought, apparently, because based on version 5.8's livestream, it looks like she somehow survived and is currently the ancient dragon whose memories are in Ineffa. So the question becomes, how? Well, the answer likely has to do with Ahau's phlogiston transmutation technique, which might have been applied to Ish-Ahkotsi Kishmalwashak around the time of her execution to preserve her memories. See, according to Kukulkan, phlogiston is not just an ordinary material, it's an atom of pure information that he calls a computronium, which can imitate the essence of anything through the weaving of iridescent inscriptions. This means it's not just a storage medium, it's a living script capable of encoding and replaying consciousness, memories, even a semblance of soul, as long as the code is woven correctly. Thus, when the developers hint that Ish-Ahkotsi Kishmalwashak might have survived her execution, they're not implying she is alive in the conventional sense. Instead, her essence was inscribed as data by transmuting her memories into phlogiston, tiny vessels of immutable information that can replicate aspects of her mind and will. And this ties directly back to Ineffa, the energy core lodged in her chest, the same design used by the secret source assistants in Chiquotel's ruined city, probably houses a lattice of phlogiston units. Within that lattice, Washak's inscribed consciousness can persist, interact, and influence the host, in this case Ineffa's otherwise logical mechanical mind. When Kukulkan mentions the phantoms at the repair mechanism in the Chamber of Deliberation, he is describing exactly this. They were echoes of consciousness playing out through phlogiston inscriptions embedded in matter. All in all, Ineffa is pretty much housing an ancient dragon inside her, to some capacity at least, because the thing is, she might unironically be Washak herself, just after losing her memories due to the phlogiston transmutation process, which would be such a cool plot twist if it happens, in my opinion. Perhaps the crystal dragon wings that jut out of her back in the story cutscene are supposed to symbolize her being the ancient dragon herself, which would also explain why she considers the great volcano of Tolan in Natlan to be her home rather than Nodekrai, where her current body was assembled. But I do have to say, an ancient dragon taking on a humanoid form and using it to live amongst people in the modern society sounds quite reminiscent of certain elements from the plot of the book Men of Lithin, where the so-called humans of the modern world are not truly human, but rather engineered beings created for a specific purpose. The real humans have long since transcended biological existence, merging their essence into Lithin. In this case, Lithin should be a metaphor for phlogiston, and if you take the time time to read this story, you will notice that it shares a lot of parallels with Natlan's ancient dragon civilization. So much so that a lot of people speculate Men of Lithin was written by Kukulkan himself under the pen name of Kanyan. And I can certainly see why. Let's not forget that Kukulkan is one of the oldest beings in all of Tevat, up there in age with the Dendro sovereign Apep herself. So if there is anyone in the world who would be familiar with the intricate details and secrets behind the Primordial One's creation of humanity, then it would certainly be Shikwotl's younger brother. Regardless, if Ineffa turns out to actually be Ish'ah Kotsihi Kishmalwashak herself, but now in a robot body, she still wouldn't be the first draconic humanoid. That title so far belongs to the likes of Neuvillette, and perhaps even Morax if he turns out to be connected to the ancient dragons as well. Speaking of Morax, Jade is a big part of his civilization, and when the traveler frees Ishlel's soul from Ochkanatlan, she gives them her Jade heart with a Triquetra symbol on it as a reward. I wonder if Ineffa has such a thing as well. At any rate, this is pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. I recently released a video about Finon's character, and I still have a bunch of other Star Rail videos to finish, so I wanted to quickly discuss Ineffa because I think she's got a lot of potential. As always, a huge thanks to everyone who supports this channel on Patreon, and thank you for watching till the end. For now, I've been My Name for Now, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care.